Hi, welcome
Guys.
back to Wild Speculations. I'm Daniel.
I'm Scott.
This week we talk about Critical Role Campaign 2, Episode 138, Where There Is a Will.
Yes.
Good name for the episode.
Yeah.
And starts roll initiative.
Yep. Fuck diplomacy.
Yeah. I was sort of counting on Kree trying to delay them.
Oh. Which she did, not entirely of her own volition, but
It's true. And off the bat, a preview of things to come almost from Jester and Caleb.
yeah. I love the look on Travis's face when she's like, I grab Caleb and I transport it. She's like, wait, what? Why are you taking him? What's so special about him?
Yeah, so good. And I didn't notice it on my initial watch, but Liam just furiously typing on his phone.
Yeah. Him and Laura were communicating back and forth.
Yeah.
Because he would type and then he'd look at her and be like, check your phone.
Well, that's what, on my rewatch, I caught that. I was like, oh, okay. We have Caduceus finally. Oh, well.
It wasn't the path to the grave we wanted, but
True.
probably of all of them, the next best option.
Yeah, well, and like we've talked about how the rogue and the paladin are the two best to do it with. And arguably the rogue more so because the rogue sneak attack is gonna happen more often.
Yeah.
Whereas if your paladin is gonna wait for that crit, then it's not as impressive. But
it's not as impressive, but anytime you can dump a 5th level smite into an attack, it's worth it.
Yeah, that's true.
Which dumping a smite is arguably more reliable than getting off sneak attack. Because you can dump a smite into something when you have disadvantage, or there's no ally beside them, or...
In the sense that it is potentially more constant, yes.
Mechanically, it is more reliable.
Yeah.
Game-wise, tactics-wise, it's just as.
Yeah.
But we also... so before we hit that midpoint in the battle, there, we've got the flesh jello.
Yeah.
Which was great. I love that. And both Ford and Caduceus getting stuck in it.
I don't know why I enjoyed that so much, but I did. It's like both servants of the Wild Mother are stuck in this flesh goo.
Yes. Well, and for me, it goes back to a comment that Caduceus made. This is a giant floating corpse. He's against undead. The Wild Mother's against undead.
Yeah.
This is them getting stuck in the shit. For me, it goes along with that and the body horror.
And later on, he straight up says, this is just the world's most massive corpse.
Yeah.
I was born for this.
Yeah, exactly.
I was literally born for this.
And that's what I loved about it, is like, you're stuck in the shit that, is completely against your religion.
Yeah.
Both of you.
Yeah.
I love that Bo finally uses her extort truth ability in the most meaningless way. And they even joke about it as soon as she does it. Yeah, we'll just ask questions in between pummeling her.
I mean, in theory, they could have.
Yeah, and it's just let me use this before the campaign ends.
Well, excuse me, she used it on Avantika.
Yeah,
But yeah, she hasn't gotten much use out of it.
yeah. Now it would have been great if they had subdued her and questioned her.
Yeah.
You know, or if she had done like with Ivanica, and because it specifies that you can choose to do minimum damage when you use this ability.
Yeah.
So she could have flurried, done the minimum damage, of 5, I think, 1 plus her Dex mod.
Yeah. 6.
6, and then said, "All right, talk to us." Yeah, and then
That's true.
Of course we've got the grave cleric doing grave shit and with the path to the grave.
Yeah. I don't know. It only mattered in the second instance that he did it as a readied action. And I question the efficacy of his readied action, because he said, "I will wait until after Jester's turn."
Yes, because he knew Not was the next one to go.
Yes, but one, Jester's not in the room.
True. Okay, that is a valid point. It should have been for just before Not attacks.
Yeah.
Beth. Would have been different wording, but the same result.
Yeah, but again, the first turn, it would not have mattered if he had done it on his turn.
Mm.
And then he would have had his reaction for the Shield of Retribution.
Yeah.
The second turn, Bo would have used it up if he had done it on his turn. With her hit, because it missed me.
Mm.
But, like, they could, like, the ideal situation is Taliesin or Caduceus says, the only people to hit her after I do this are Ford and Knott.
Yeah.
Or Vet. And that way, because Bo almost was facing a 1-for-1 damage output.
Yeah.
For hitting
some attacks, exactly.
Yeah. So it really didn't do them any good for her to be hitting it.
No.
So yeah, I think him using his reaction to wait is arguably less effective.
Less effective, but when you want it to go off with a specific person, I can see why, He didn't want to take the chance. I mean, you've got 2 people with Sentinel in the mix.
Again,
you don't know what might happen.
Yeah.
Of course, Kree becomes the equivalent of Oprah to the Somnovum. You get an eye, and you get an eye, and you get an eye.
And see, I think Marisha might have pieced it together at the end of the episode, and she may be closer to right than she wants to be.
Mm-hmm.
But an interesting mechanic nonetheless, where, and the specific wording that Lucian used was, you need to become a vessel for the pattern.
Yeah.
Which gets back to, all of the tales of heroes being corrupted by the things that they fight, or being affected in some way. by the evils that they fight. This taps into that vein a little bit. And the temptation of the power that they are already feeling.
Yeah. Well, it really made me feel bad for Kree. And it really emphasized what I said last week, that Lucian isn't an anti-hero. He isn't trying to do anything good here, He's trying to be a dick. And Kree basically should have just kept on to that 1,000 gold or whatever component used in resurrecting Lucian.
Oh, saved herself.
Saved herself.
Yeah.
And the first clue should have been when he let all their friends die. All their friends died, he didn't, And now she's just an expendable pawn to him. He,
I think she was holding out hope. And she already had so much sunk into this.
Yeah.
Like them killing the rest of the Tomb Takers was unfortunate and a tragedy. But, I mean, they lost Lucian once.
Yeah.
So
I mean, I'm just saying right now she'd be in a better place if she had stayed with the gentleman.
Accurate. Yes. I loved how Sam was hesitant about killing her.
Yeah.
And the dice, no.
Yeah, the dice, no. And Rose, you're exactly on the same page. It's when she called out to him and he's like, actually, no, just, be expendable.
So, today I saw a video on my lunch break, and I do not remember the name of the channel offhand on YouTube, but they had cut together the fight between Oban and Kree.
Oh, okay.
And how Yasha took Oban down.
Mm-hmm.
And then Thera's Dune brought back Oban the Punished.
Yeah.
And in this one, Yasha struck down Kree. And Lucian makes her...
Yeah.
He does essentially the same thing to her that Thera's Dune did to Oban.
Yeah. Kree the pattern vessel.
Yeah. But that was interesting and just further reinforces the repeating themes that have been happening.
Yeah. We also got confirmation. Telepathy is the first eye. Yep. So, which is right in line with what I suggested. And we know from Caleb's deduction, and Matt confirmed it last week, that the seeing through the illusions is the second eye. Because that's when he first saw through the illusion of Sprinkle. So, telepathy, illusion, dark vision are the first three.
Yeah.
In that order. So.
We'll see if Caleb's able to figure out
what the fourth eye is before the end of the campaign. Yeah.
Caleb and Jester together in that room, in the Threshold Crest chamber, was beautiful, and I kind of wonder if the pace in Matt's mind of the encounter was fighty, fight, flee to the crest chamber, fight, and maybe if she had gotten to the crest chamber, she would have had extra abilities.
Maybe.
Because the floor in that chamber seemed to have more flesh.
Yeah.
So maybe she would have had a layer action in there.
Perhaps. I think it was designed to get the threshold crest through before they could stop it. I think that's what she was part of what she was supposed to stall them for.
Well, the threshold crest was in place. I don't think Matt expected the disintegrate right off the bat.
Yeah, that was great, and I love the descriptor. Where you usually see stone, you see the flesh just blacken and wither, and I was just like, oh. The descriptions in this city are right up my alley and right to my taste.
Yeah. What would you rule the reach of the gorilla is? The vertical reach.
I'm not sure. How tall are they?
Somewhere between 12 and 18 feet tall. They are a huge creature. Because I think Matt was short Triftinger.
Yeah. I think they could.
Gorillas have really long arms.
Yeah. I mean, I have longer than average arms based on, and, I'm 5'9", and I think I'm just under 6, and I think I can reach around to 8 foot, a little over.
So, yeah. I think the ape should have been able to hit 30 feet easy.
Okay.
And, reaching up and grabbing it should not have been an issue. At all. But I think part of me wonders, if, because disintegrates a certain amount of material.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it is a sufficient volume of material that the threshold crest should have fallen to the ground.
Okay.
But Matt wanted tension in that room.
Yeah.
So it's got some tendrils on it that, flash out to grab it as it falls.
Yeah.
Also,
how quick would that fight have been if they had the 2 extra people in it? I mean, it was basically an execution as it was.
Fair.
And if you add arguably 2 of the better damage dealers of the party.
Yeah. Yes, it would have definitely went faster. Which is why in the first turn, Kree's action was to try to run away.
Yeah.
And get back to that chamber. But the Sentinels are right next to her, so that didn't happen.
Well, that and counterspell.
Yeah. Which we also talked about that was going to be in the mix. So, yeah. If she would have started the combat a little further away from that flesh pit, say 60 feet from it, she could have gotten away.
Yep.
But, yeah.
When Caleb uses immovable object, I think the spell was Rule of Cooled. I think Matt was like, "That's a good idea. I'm going to let it slide," because the spell specifies that the object you cast it on has to be 10 pounds or less. And I'm pretty sure threshold crests are heavier than 10 pounds.
Yes. They have been described as such. I don't think Matt has given a specific weight.
Right, but the
he has
Explorer's
said they
Guide to
are
Wild Mount, gives the weight limit of 10 pounds in the spell. Now that could be Matt made the spell to be any object prior to it being published by Wizards of the Coast, and they nerfed it for balance reasons. And in his world, it's more powerful because it's his world.
Yeah.
But I just, that was something that caught my attention.
Well, and again, I also come down to...
And I know they did that with... Wizards intentionally did nerf the wrist pocket spell in Explorer's Guide, so it wouldn't be the only spell that they nerfed. Because Wizards made it concentration, where it wasn't before.
You're probably right. Matt probably did rule of cool that, or it's a question of they've now invested 2 4th level spells, and immovable object is a 3rd, I think.
Yes.
The dice were not particularly hot on the table.
No.
To begin the session. And so he might have also just... that works.
Well, and to be fair, they're on the Astral Sea. And weight and gravity, which affects your weight, vary.
This is true.
So, I mean, I could see an allowance for that. And that's how I would have rule of cooled it and let it happen, personally, just because that's a creative use. That's something, and that's how I would have justified rule of cooling it. Where on the Astral Sea, you can do, timey-wimey things with weight.
Yeah.
So, I mean, not criticizing, I'm all for it. I think it was a great call. I think it was a great gambit on Liam's part, on Caleb's part, but it was just something that caught my attention, so I wanted to point it out.
Where do you come down on Caleb climbing the gorilla?
I mean, she did say she picks him up, so.
Well, no, because the first turn that he's in there, and she couldn't pull it down. She had failed the strength check. He was going to climb up her so that he could do it then, before it got me higher.
Yeah.
And Matt told him it would take his action to do it. Or he would allow him to make an athletics check at disadvantage if he didn't want to take his action.
I would have counted it just as movement. I probably would have had an athletics check. It's the same way I've had several creatures climb onto dragons, or whatever, and make an athletics check to get on there, or a grapple check, whatever it is, and then you can use your movement to do that, I think being the fact that they're teammates and stuff, I probably would have been a little more lenient on it. I would have made an athletics check, but I would have made it his movement. I mean, to be fair, this is a city where they can fly at the speed of thought, essentially. Not thought, but their intelligence.
Yes.
He could have just flown up there and done it if he really wanted to. Yeah. So, tisket a tasket. That's how I would have gone.
Yeah. And I don't know. Yeah, I probably would have called for an athletics check too. But yeah, I would not have. It would have just been his movement.
Yeah.
She's his ally.
They
were
gonna make the pun. They've ridden each other before and polymorphed.
It's true. Yes.
So it's not like it's a new teamwork ability.
Yes. But it takes another round, and Japester gives up her turn to lift him up.
Yep.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, and I do think that was probably the most effective thing for her to do because she wasn't really having any luck pulling on it.
Yeah.
So put the smart guy that knows how magic shit works in a magic city up there to deal with the magic problem.
Yeah. Do you think they forgot they could fly?
Yes. 100% did not cross their mind because that was the simplest answer. I just move up to it, you know.
I will myself to the ceiling. What's your intelligence? 20. Yeah, you get there.
Yeah, you move it 60 feet. The roof's only
25, 30 feet, Matt said. So, yeah.
You easily get there. You can get back down to the bottom after you're done if you feel like it. You have enough movement.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was something that was completely overlooked by the cast, and you know, it is what it is. We all forget things at the table sometimes.
Well, and it's not even. It's to me, it's an unconscious side effect of being in Cognosa.
Yes.
Like ever since they landed, they haven't been using the mental speed. None of them have. Even when they were outside looking for Yusa, they didn't describe themselves flying up and then flying down.
Yeah.
Because that would have shaved off a bunch of time. Exactly, Toffinator. They could all be Essek if they wanted to be.
Yes. Which is another surprising thing. Why wasn't Veth mocking Essek? It's kind of Veth saying mock everybody. She could have just been imitating Essek.
Oh, yeah. That's true. Yeah.
Or Jester with her, you know, whole psychosis of, I can do that too.
Now, see, it fits more Jester than that, I think. That Jester would be like, oh, I can float too now.
Yes, I'm thinking more along the lines of always commenting on the gentleman's sweatiness or forge strength or...
Well, I could see Veth going, hey, Essek. And then he looks away and she lands. A couple minutes later, floats up. Hey, Essek.
Yeah. Yeah, something along those lines. Exactly.
But with Caduceus' help coming in, casting Blight on the ceiling, it releases the gem.
Yep.
Japester takes the stone until she can't move it anymore. And then they debate on what to do and where to send it.
Yep.
The two clerics, we have plane shift, and where are we going to send it? And they're going back and forth, and Laura decides to, I guess, prelude a divine intervention? Do you think?
Yeah, I think.
Because they don't have a tuning fork for the Feywild.
They have Sprinkle.
They arguably have Frumpkin, too.
Yeah.
But the spell doesn't call for a creature. It calls for a tuning fork.
True.
But they remember, we also have that tuning fork for the fireplane.
Yeah.
And they decide that's where we're going to send it. They also seem to have forgotten that they have a tuning fork for the Astral Sea that Why am I blanking? Allura gave them.
Yeah.
Again, this comes down to them not having to know exactly what they have.
Yep.
And also confusion between the clerics as to who has which tuning fork. But Caduceus sends it away, and Jester's like, "We won. Now we can try to stop him at our leisure, basically. We stopped it. The city can't go back. It can't leave here. Now we can take our time to get it."
Now, and this scene got me thinking, arguably, they've ended the threat of Uk'otoa. Because the Cloven Crystal is now in the Astral Sea. No matter how many minions he spawns, they've got no clue where it is.
It's true.
Now and really the only ones who know it's on the Astral Sea are on the Astral Sea.
Yes.
So should they kill Lucian on the Astral Sea? I don't think anyone in the Nine's going to give up that information.
True. Well, not willingly.
Not willingly. So, effectively, provided that it isn't ripped from their minds in some way, they've ended the threat of Uk'otoa at this point.
Severely diminished the threat of Uk'otoa.
Of him being freed.
Yeah.
So.
If they leave it there. Which if they kill him, they're going to take that back with them.
Yeah. Probably. But at this point in time...
Fair point. I have to say, I am more and more inspired to just have stuff fall out of the sky.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
People plane shifting objects or teleport mishaps.
Plane shift, teleport mishaps, anything like that.
Tavnir, I don't think they can just create that kind of thing. Otherwise, the Somnovum would have created a threshold crest already.
Yeah.
Or he wouldn't have bothered to get them if he could just will it into existence. I think the only thing he can do is shape the flesh of the city. It will be flesh when he is done manipulating it.
Yeah. He can make it appear like a threshold crest, but it won't have the properties thereof.
Right. And Matt, being a brilliant, subtle DM, and I don't know if he pre-planned this, but Essex says, "Hey, we have that stone. We could use it now and get it a long rest."
That was pure genius to me. I loved it. I love the idea of using that, combining spells to create a new effect. That was the other inspired thing, other than the apparating stuff out of the blue is, use this little Dunamanic rock and with your combined knowledge, turn the tiny hut into a regeneration chamber, for better or worse.
Yeah.
Now my only question is, how much like the regeneration chamber was it? Yes, they got the long rest real quick like that, which I probably would have had them, like in my brain, they should have used catnap as well. Because catnap, reduces a short rest to 10 minutes. It's very much a Dunamanic flavored spell. It's not Dunamancy, but did it, the tube restored Ford's hair? did the dome in this fashion restore Veth's size?
Well, if it's enlarge and reduce, she's already regular size.
Right.
And because Matt didn't remind Sam to subtract the D4 from all of his damage rolls, I'm assuming Veth is her normal size again.
Okay. Fair enough.
So, because enlarge and reduce is only good for
a minute.
Yeah. So, and at most, if you equate it, it might be as long as an hour, like the polymorph was.
Yeah.
So, but an interesting thing that I wanted to touch on, vis-a-vis the activation of the long rest in an instantaneous manner, was the pseudo skill check that he made them make.
Yeah.
Roll a d20 and add the spell level that you are contributing. And he made a combined DC for the check. And I was like, that would work also for any teamwork test potentially.
Yeah.
And it enables even a failed roll.
Yeah.
Like if someone rolls a 10 or 11, and in a normal skill check, the DC would be 13 or 14.
Mm-hmm.
Their 10 or 11 would still contribute to a total large DC like that.
Right. I think it's one of those. The normal skill check is more for a tension or a montage type scene, because there's definitely more tension in the. Oh man, we got 3 failures and 3 successes. It all comes down to this. So if you're wanting to build tension, or you're wanting it to be like a montage scene where you're doing this and then you're doing this and then you're doing this, you go with that standard skill test, group skill test. I think for something like the combining of spells or creating a new ritual out of spells or something like that, that this combined DC is the way to go, because it's all culminating in one act of everybody working together in the one moment rather than over a period of time.
Okay. I also was thinking that it would be easier in the sense of, because in a skill check of 2 people, you can't really do a majority pass-fail.
Yes.
In that situation. So maybe that's why he did it that way also.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah. But he let him have guidance. But he didn't present it as an ability check. So that kind of piqued my interest in the sense that it was sort of presented as a skill challenge, but not.
Yeah.
So, yeah. I think maybe the split is use your spell level as your proficiency modifier.
Mm.
So it would be D20 plus intelligence plus the spell's level.
Yeah.
And then they could add the guidance without having any kind of mechanical hand-wavy DM fiat stuff happening. Yeah. So, yeah. But I did like that that's how he did that check. And they get their long rest. And Matt announces to the table that he had set a combined DC of 40.
Right.
And Marisha's like, well, what happened if that would have failed? And Matt's like, it's a question for the wrap-up.
Yeah. And he even said visa Essek, hey, it could give us the long rest. It could rip us out of time and space.
Yeah.
So.
And there was...
Yeah, personally, I got excited. If I'm running a game and I had players come up, hey, can we combine these spells? Hey, can we do this kind of thing, use this item? And I'd been like, yeah, and I would have used this method, heard what they want to do, all right, set a DC in my mind for how likely I think that is, given what they're doing. Okay, you guys roll, do it this way. Got the combined DC. Let's see if it pays off for you.
Yeah.
I would very much encourage that of my players,
Yeah. There was also a little bit of Doctor Strange.
Yeah.
Because time doesn't work exactly the same on the Astral Sea, in that you don't age there.
Yeah.
So, like, there was a little undercurrent in my head of the equivalent of Doctor Strange coming with the Time Stone. I've come to bargain.
Yeah.
And just that. So maybe Toffinator, instead of an alternate timeline, maybe it's a time loop that they end up in.
Yeah.
Which, I have to say, I had an idea for a game where that's the whole thing. I don't know how many times I could repeat the time loop before I lost my players.
Depends on how large the loop is.
Uh-huh.
And, I mean, because if you're doing time loops, Majora's Mask is a time loop over you've got 3 days, and then you restart the 3 days, and then you restart the 3 days.
Yeah.
And
I was thinking Groundhog Day. 1 day. When you lay down to take your long rest, it restarts.
Yeah. And, I mean...
But...
It's a great way for you to put in something that requires a lot of investigation, a lot of teamwork, a lot of trial and error solution type thing. I'd be down for it. Let's see how long it goes.
A whole 3-year campaign that's 1 day.
Yeah. Sounds awesome.
But yeah, Bo meditates and finds Yusa.
Yep.
And they go there, and they're, well, could we dispel it? Could we...
Mm-hmm.
How are we going to get him out? And Liam casts banishment.
Yep.
And Matt rolled for it. My question is, was he using Yusa's stats or Cognosis stats?
That's a good question.
Because the way that he described it is Liam pushed him out of that shell.
Yeah.
And the shell almost seemed to remain. And then once free of that shell, of course, you can go back to your body immediately.
Right. Well, I have a feeling that Yusa was probably a willing participant. Yusa probably willingly failed. So what it probably was more akin to counterspell or a save to resist the effects and keep Yusa there by the city. And so he probably used Cognosis stats to try and stop this magic from happening and losing this new piece.
Yeah. And Toffinator, no. You wouldn't be stuck at level 2. You would level up just the same.
Yeah, because just like Bill Murray, you remember everything from the previous days, so... Yeah. Or I think it's on Hulu, the movie A Map of Perfect Little Things, which is basically the same tick, but there's 2 people stuck in the time loop.
Yeah.
And trying to figure out how to break the time loop.
Yeah. You have to get to 18th level or 17th to get 9th level spells, so that the person playing the wizard can get Wish to end this whole damn thing.
Well, that's the easy way. Hard mode, you beat it by 10th level.
Is it fair?
Because you find something creative.
Yeah. But the big thing after that is Bo, Marisha, having a burst of inspiration. After she's made contact to find Yusa, well, why don't we just imagine ourselves there?
Yep.
And Matt gets all giddy. You gonna do that? Because he's been waiting for it.
Yep.
And yeah. So she gets them all. They all retire to a chamber in a house. And
she uses the telepathy to put the image of where they need to go.
I'm trying. Should Travis play a Grong in Campaign 3?
That would be awesome.
Because he's always licking stuff.
Each campaign, he just gets smaller and smaller. Goliath, half-orc, Grong.
Well, yeah, I guess that would be the steps, I suppose. But
he'd have to be a full caster, because he also increases in magical ability.
Yes.
He can be the Grung Bard.
Yeah. But again, Matt does the roll a d20, but this time add your wisdom modifier and the number of eyes that you have.
Yep.
And Caleb failed that roll in that he rolled less than 20.
Yeah.
I think that's the DC that Matt has whenever you're interacting with the eyes, or whenever you don't want another eye. But the tunnel is produced. They go down, and all of the Somnovum come into the Aether Crux structure. And we meet...
And my competing hypothesis was proved incorrect, so we meet the final two.
The Somnovum Omega.
Yes.
And when pressed about, so you all get along now, does not acknowledge the comment. Does not acknowledge Discord.
Yep.
And seems visibly shaken when Jester says, he's been talking about old power. He may not be here to do the thing you think he's here to do.
Which, like I said last week, is exactly what he stated several episodes ago. It was his goal. It's been his goal.
And we get a full-on explanation of why he turned away from Lackey and why he decided to take over.
Yeah.
Because after his soul was broken and they put him together, he realized they were just bickering. And while I had posited the possibility that he was actually trying to help these people, turns out he's Zoran Doxos in Karth.
Yeah.
There's no king in Cognosa. There is now. And I love Travis's, I'm still trying to decide if this is better or worse. It's like, I thought we were going in there fighting, Lucian plus 9 other people that maybe some of them that don't get along. And now it's just one. He's like, I don't know if that's better or worse. And then getting back to Marisha's comment, Essek, us, and Lucian makes 9.
Yep.
Which comes back to what you were talking about, the Cloven Crystal remaining in the Astral Sea. It's possible they do become the 9. The new
Somno.
Yeah. To keep it there.
The Nova Somnova?
Nuevo.
Nueva Somnova.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't think that's going to happen.
I don't either. Unless Lucian has a way to force them into it.
Well, I don't think Lucian wants partners. I think Lucian thinks he's got this down. I'm wondering how much like Ghostbusters it's gonna be. Where yeah, toughening it up. I'm also worried about the layer actions now. Yeah.
Here's an interesting thought. What if the way they defeat or put Lucian in check is somehow combining spells, whatever, doing a thing like that, and Essek gives up his place, helps with the city, and it's a dichotomy where Essek and Lucian have to keep each other in check. Lucian or Essek might be willing to do it because it escapes all the bullshit he's in trouble for back home, and he gets knowledge and power.
He seems to have been pretty horrified by the experience of being here. I don't think he wants to be a part of it, even if it gets him out of Trent's line of sight. And only temporarily, because Trent can come here too.
True.
So, no, I don't think... I think Essek might die for them to help them kill Lucian and destroy the city. But I don't... If all of them don't meld into the new Somnovum, none of them do. If I had to guess, they will go in to confront Lucian. And thus far, they have allowed Lucian to monologue whenever he wants.
Yep.
I don't see that changing, but if they're ever going to break that pattern, this is the time.
Yeah.
Where he just starts monologuing, and I'm going to say Ford just goes, no. I Eldritch Blast.
Or Veth.
Yeah. I still think Bo and Yasha are still too invested in trying to find a piece of Molly.
Yeah.
If Matt has any piece of happy ending,
and that's probably true of Chester as well. I don't think she's actively searching, but if there's an opportunity, she will.
I think it's more likely now that she thinks they have stopped the city from crossing over.
So.
I think because she thinks the city's not going anywhere, she may entertain that possibility of trying to get Molly back.
Yeah.
Oh yes, Rose. Thank you. The armor swap and clothes change. I did have a note about that in my notes, but it was more along the lines of the question of, oh, Yasha's into magic cloaks.
Yeah.
Apparently. And it is funny to think that Caduceus's aesthetic matches so well with Jester.
Yeah.
Like that, she's totally down for it. I don't think Veth switches to the Aeorian weapon. I think the Tinker Top is just as good.
Yeah.
Or better. And arguably better because there's a mechanic that Sam gets to enjoy, which is the natural 1.
Yep.
And then natural 20 doing things. I don't think... He has bought bolts before, but I don't think tracking ammunition is as important or as accurately done.
Yeah.
Um,
It's right up there with spell components.
But the big question is the city trapped? Because I don't know that it is.
I don't think so.
And not just Toffinator's question about can he just make one.
Yeah.
I think they only needed one. But they wanted two so that Lucian could distract the Somnovum with the placement of two.
Yeah, I think it was both to distract the Somnovum and distract the Mighty Nine.
Also a possibility, yeah.
Definitely, because now they think they've got all the time in the world.
Yeah.
And they don't.
Yeah.
If they let their guard down a little is good.
Yeah. Yeah. Because now, in theory, he's in control now. And I don't think he cares if he only takes half the city. Like, if only having one of the two crests means he's got to leave half the city there, he'll do it.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure the Somnovum started out trying to save the city of Aor, but figured their neighborhood was better than nothing.
Yeah.
Lucian's trying to bring back Cognosa, but half the neighborhood's better than nothing.
Yeah. Interesting possibility occurred to me that he may be pieces of different souls that the Somnovum pieced together to send back.
Mm.
So Lucian may be the same sort of disjointed, like internally, as the Somnovum Omega. And the Omega didn't seem to want to either admit or acknowledge the discord within.
I think it would be more that this is the effect, the splintering of Lucian is what happened as an effect of him reading that book and becoming the Nonagon, rather than people from Cognosa sent there, because he talks about he was a normal guy until he found the book and got obsessed with the Somnovum and the Nonagon in his origin story.
Yeah.
When he does that,
It's fair.
So while I agree that's the end result, I think it's not like he was sent there as this disjointed thing. I think because of the influence of these 9 individual pieces of the Somnovum Omega, they disjointed. And I think Molly was probably one of those shards. But that shard, that particular member didn't have influence anymore.
Okay. So yeah, I think they do go and confront him. I think it is going to be a big battle. And I think it will be potentially on par lengthwise and complexity-wise with Vecna. We will have Lucian the Ascended.
Mm-hmm.
Or Lucian the Omega. Or something to that effect. And it's gonna be rough. And Liam's mind blank may be key.
Yeah. So if it's Vecna level, do they have former guest stars show up?
Very possibly. Except that none of that's been set up. They haven't been trying to gather allies.
Yeah.
so probably not. And the pandemic and
Well, I mean, at this point, a guest star is just having a screen like they do with Patrick Rothfuss that one time.
True.
And having them Skype in from their home computer.
Yeah. Tough-Mater, I think my death predictions that we made before stand.
Yeah.
I think Gesture is the most likely to be willing to sacrifice herself. I think Veth can make it out, and she's going to have to choose Caleb, Gesture, or Caduceus to get her home. Yeah,
What's going to be interesting is when Jester decides to sacrifice herself in seeing Ford's reaction.
Yes, for sure.
My gut, he's going to make a protest and let her do it and leave.
I think he goes with her.
I think if anyone goes with her, it's Caleb. Because Caleb is also, I believe, willing to sacrifice. The most willing. I believe he's the next most willing to sacrifice himself.
Yes. And in the sense of campaign denouements, he's the only string that needs tied off. And if he dies, then that doesn't need to happen.
Yeah. I think it ends up being Jester and Caleb. Ford lets them.
All right. MVP for this episode, and we're over time right now. My three were Laura, Liam, and Marisha, and I lean toward Liam.
Yeah, I think for me it's Liam.
Tough-Mater, I think we get back to the material plane. I don't think the end of the campaign is happening this week. I think we'll have one more episode after this week.
Okay.
And then I think we will probably have a break. And we'll talk more next week about what we want to try to do.
Yeah.
If they take a break and they do one-shots. Because I think that's probably what they're going to do. And I think they're going to try and come back live in their studio or at the table.
Mm.
I think they had a meeting and they said, let's start campaign 3 when we can get together around the table again.
Mm.
And I think with the pre-taping situation, they can play out that, and they have wiggle room in the sense of when they start the live broadcast again.
Yeah.
And I think Talks comes back that week as in person.
Okay.
And they do the campaign wrap-up as the first live Talks.
Yeah, I can see that.
That's my guess. But we will have to see. We will see you guys next week, I guess.